Our First Looks coverage is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Get your next laptop, tablet, Xbox, and more by going to firstlooks.tv/Microsoft. All right, our next guest is here. Hello.
How are you?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
Fine.
I'm
Woody. Danielle.
Danielle.
Pleased to meet you both.
Nice to meet you.
I realized yesterday when I was told that you were going to be here, and Wendy said that she was going to try everything in her power to get you on the show. I realized that today is the first time in 21 years that you and I have probably even been in the same state at the same time.
Okay. Well, I don't know. It depends on where you've been.
Let alone, but
where did the 21 years ago? Where were we together?
Here in Orlando at Epcot.
Having a big time.
Yes, indeed. Because I was on a team from '97 through 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
What team?
It had two names.
Okay.
It was Team 42 and then Team 320. A Cat was the name that most people knew us by because it was more than a season under that name.
Was that a good experience?
It was a wonderful experience. Here we are, 22 seasons later, still involved with.
First hasn't evolved much, but
No, not at all. Oh no, wait. Yeah. Well, for one, the fields aren't an octagon or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So Danielle, about you and First.
Yeah, I was a part. I don't know if you met Marissa already. I was a part of First Tech Challenge.
Okay.
With a team. It's called Team Duct Tape.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I started.
Did your robot look like duct tape?
No, but we did incorporate duct tape in a lot of our our things.
Early in the first years, we had a rule about not using duct tape, and it was called Woody's rule. And after we loosened things up, people started using it effectively. But early on, it was fairly important in my mind that the robots look professionally done, and having the duct tape look hadn't come up to speed yet.
Sure.
Yeah. No, we didn't really have too much duct tape on our robot. It was mostly just like our costumes and stuff were made out of duct tape.
Well, the costumes are really beautiful. I mean, been some really nice prom gowns and stuff like that.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, for those who may not know, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
My name's Woodie Flowers. I've been associated with the FIRST Robotics Competition since Dean and I founded it in about 1990. And Dean had founded FIRST, and he was looking for a way to spread the influence of the culture change that he had in mind. I had been running a competition at MIT for 20 years or so and had carefully evolved it to the point that it was pretty well known, and I was host of Scientific American Frontiers, and that program and Discover the World of Science, another PBS program, had covered our competitions for several years. So it had become quite well known around the world, very well known in places like Japan, for example. So I showed Dean what we've been doing, and he said, great, let's do that. And so we jumped on board, and FIRST Robotics Competition was born.
Wow. And you obviously are here for the 20th anniversary, correct?
That's right.
So can you tell us a little bit about your day? How has it been going?
It's really great. The Orlando Regional is wonderful because there's a great nexus here. There's a whole bunch of high-tech companies. There's a whole bunch of good weather and a whole bunch of teams that have been around a long time. So you walk in and you hear the list of judges, and they're all elite technology people. And you go to the Executive Advisory Board meeting, and they're all sponsors that have been around a long time. So there's a lot of history here, and it's a very successful regional effort. And this is the kind of thing that needs to happen in lots of places. There are some places when you go to a FIRST event, you don't hear a whole list of high-tech executives that are participating. So Orlando, Florida is doing well. We need to spread that to lots of places.
That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. That's legitimately part of the goals of this series is to show off how some other organizations do things, the planning committees and stuff, and help push that out.
Make it, got to make it happen.
Absolutely. So obviously you've been around since the beginning of the competition, and like we said, it has evolved a lot in that time. When I joined as a mentor for Team Duct Tape 5-ish years ago, I said to them, I'm like, you guys are being asked to do what? I'm pretty sure that Woody and MIT couldn't have pulled off some of this stuff when I was in FIRST Robotics Competition, and they're asking FIRST Tech Challenge to do this kind of stuff. Wow, has FIRST changed? What is your favorite change that has happened since the beginning?
Well, obviously the evolution of more power and more speed is positive because it's more interesting. We learned that before FIRST started. But one of the ones that is great is, FTC uses vision very effectively. When we first started doing some additional instrumentation in the kits, there was a movement to recognize red and blue. Mm-hmm. And I was, let's just do vision. Let's just go ahead. Cameras are cheap, and then they were still more like $100. Now they're in billions of cell phones, so they cost nothing. Yeah. But when we first
gotten far smaller.
When they first did that, nobody could do anything with the camera images. Now it's really easy. I should say really easy, but much more accessible. Yeah. So the evolution of technology, we've gone to the point where, when you want to compose an essay, you don't write a word processing program and then compose an essay.
Right.
You use Word and go.
Right.
Now that level has moved into the robotic stuff, and it's obvious that it's going to move that way even faster.
Sure.
One of the things that's just happened fairly recently is there's a thing called Fake App, which allows someone to, with free software, take your face and put it on his body, or vice versa, and make it completely believable.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you can rent server time from Google to throw as much computer horsepower at it as you need. And very soon, that'll be RF connected to robots so that they will be able to, a robot in Australia can recognize the goal for one end. So the technology platforms that we are using are moving very fast, and the students have to keep up, and we have to keep up because, as I talked about some this morning, apparently the most commonly downloaded version of this fake video thing is a porno video with Michelle Obama. So nefarious use of that stuff is just going to be rampant.
Oh, absolutely.
And the young people are going to live in a world where finding truth is a bigger issue than it's ever been. It's already complicated.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So I think FIRST is a wonderful vehicle. It's kind of a safe environment in which you learn about Mother Nature and about yourself and about society and your team, etc.
Sure.
And I think you got a much better shot of being turned loose in the world and hanging on to the quest for objective truth. Our generations have given the world show me the money. We need young people to give us back show me the data. We have to have rational decisions, and right now it's not happening. And I believe that FIRST people are in a really good position to study a little bit about their own brain and recognize that it's optimized for a planet that was true 150,000 years ago.
Right.
Evolution hasn't caught up. So we've still got some basic instincts that are not geared to the culture that we've created. It's not geared for now. And having the intellectual horsepower to recognize your own thought process and pick the right path is going to become increasingly important. And I also think that FIRST is a great model for tackling the even bigger problem associated with growing up in the modern world, because the sort that's in process, there's a group of people who can and are part of, and a people who can't and have their nose pressed up against the glass saying, I want some of that. That division is a really serious issue. So FIRST kids are going to grow up in a world where they not only, they're likely to be successful themselves, they've got a big advantage, but they've got to pull 100 or so others with them. And that's very complex, tough thing to do. So if we're going to have a world that's worth living in, then not only do we have to educate people, but we have to educate people to educate others. So, anyway.
Well, the good news is that with FIRST outreach and stuff like that,
it's
the kids are trained and have experience doing exactly that.
And they know what it feels like to do it. They know that little bit of emotional endorphin that you get, is good stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't go, you go do it again because you know it feels good.
Yeah.
To see that light come on with somebody when something you're telling them clicks is just...
And even inspiring younger students, younger kids into growing up into that stigma.
Exactly. Encouraging the FIRST Robotics Competition teams to mentor a FIRST Lego League team and stuff like that. There's a lot of that in the organization.
One of my ambassador guides today was working with lots of foster kids. And, it spreads outside the FIRST community in a very nice way.
That's
I
fantastic.
write quite a few Eagle Scout congratulation letters for FIRST people.
That's awesome.
Every one of them has some story in it about how this new scout has done something great for the community. So it's neat.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that is your favorite aspect of what the organization produces?
My favorite aspect is kind of the underlying philosophy, what we're doing. And I'm thrilled that when I first started studying engineering, there was a very heavy focus on analytical technique.
Sure.
For obvious reasons, because most of the stuff that you did was kind of by hand, or you wrote a Fortran program and ran a simple, but now...
Fortran, there's a bit of a throwback.
You bet. I almost failed a computer programming class because I misspelled the word dimension.
Oh.
And the arrow statements, I'd get a Z-fold stack this thick that was all arrow statements.
Yep.
And I'm dyslexic. I'd never find a misspelled word. And so, But anyway, now, my watch just told me yesterday where I had parked. I mean, come on. And I didn't even know that was going to happen. It just happened. Like, whoa. I can tell you. And I figured out it was because I'd used Google Maps to navigate to where my sister's house was, and so it knew where the car was.
Okay.
So
Technology, man.
It's really exciting stuff. And if you, one of the things that people, if you learn enough, you learn access to awe. And awe is a big deal. But when the guys discovered gravity waves, wow, nobody cared. I mean, they did something that was just so completely impossible. In two separate places, thousands of miles apart, they measured this thing that was so small.
Yes.
They had to be able to detect the displacement that was much less than any subatomic particle in the 5-mile-long thing. And so they both measured the same ripple in gravity.
Which is crazy.
I mean, it's just crazy. So, and my iPhone puts 20,000 dots on my face and will animate an emoji. And that's in my pocket. Just a few years ago, that was major Hollywood production to do that sort of stuff. You put dots on people and you did a lot of post-processing. Now, done.
And when all of this started, it was in like 10 places.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just in the grand scheme of things, the short life of the first organization, the whole world
Right.
has changed in the trend of what FIRST is about.
Right. So amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
But the good news is that a whole bunch of people, now we have millions of alumni, and a significant chunk of the population is changing. Yeah. So you guys are in a big crowd.
Yes, indeed. Almost our entire organization for our company is either FIRST alumni or parents of FIRST alumni.
Well, MIT, more than 10% of MIT's freshman class are FIRST alumni.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
Yes, indeed
Definitely
it
it
is.
is.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And when they did that particular study, they also found out what being a FIRST alumni did to your chances of being admitted, and for good reason chose not to publicize that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Not distort the incentive system.
Well, we are so glad that you're here for the 20th anniversary.
Definitely.
It's nice to be here.
We're so glad that you were able to come join us today.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Absolutely.
We
Are
love
you
it.
doing the best job you can?
I think we are.
We always try.
We love what we do.
All right.
Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks.
Thank you
Enjoyed
so
talking
much.
with you.
Absolutely.